Wild, and it's John Wild Storytime here on Hanging with John Wild. And I'm going to try to see how many times I can say the word John Wild without getting on everyone's nerves. But basically, what Storytime is, it's a little segment on my channel where I tell a story of something that has happened in my life. I love telling stories of things that happened in my life. And a lot of my friends were saying, you know what, you should start making videos of these things and putting them out for people to share with you in the stories of your life. And I said, okay, well, let's see. Either you're going to get bored off your or you're going to be entertained. I don't know which one it's going to be, but we're going to try. So I was thinking about what story to tell first, and I think the one that pops into my mind is a story that I told to a friend yesterday, and all these stories are true. Everything in it is true. This really happened in my life. Lots of things have happened in my life. I've had an adventurous life, either some good, some bad, some whatever. But let's talk about events in my life that happened February 22nd through February 23rd, 1998. Now, as most of you know, I live in Orlando, Florida. Bad weather is not a stranger to us here in Florida. We get hurricanes all the time. Sometimes we get some real bad ones. But the one thing that we do get frequently, but they're not too horrible, is tornadoes. The thing about tornadoes in Florida, though, however, is most of our weather circulates. It's usually, oh my goodness, I'm not going to edit out my yawns. I do that frequently for some reason. It's usually the storms that come through here are low pressure systems, but they always turn and they spit out these little tornadoes, F0, F1s. The only problem is during a hurricane we can get up to 2 or 3 tornadoes within a 1 mile radius, or within just a few blocks. I mean, there's a lot of tornadoes that can drop out of these. We have a lot of water here in Orlando. We get a lot of water spouts. When the water spouts come ashore, they're considered tornadoes. So we get a lot of little tornadoes. Now, the worst time in Florida to get tornadoes is December, January, February, March, right when we're getting warmed up, but we still have mega cold fronts coming down through the United States and into Florida. And when you have warm, moist air and freezing cold fronts coming in, and they clash together, sometimes you can get some awesome storms. Well, going back to 1998, I was married to Nisi of the Eco Guys of Past. And I remember on the date of February 22nd, 1998, the weather forecasters were calling for some severe weather overnight. And that's sometimes the worst time to have severe weather is overnight, because you can't see it coming in the dark. So we were, you know, I've always had weather as a hobby of mine. So I, busted out all my little things, and I'm looking at this cold front coming through, and I'm looking at the water temperature of the oceans, and I'm looking at the air temperature and the moisture content, humidity, and all this stuff, and trying to come up with my own forecast. And as I was looking at our relative high humidity that day, warm weather with this very strong cold front coming, I started getting a little on the nervous side. And my wife at the time is not used to me being nervous. And I was telling her that, well, maybe we should batten down some hatches before we go to bed and watch this. Now, as the day progressed, it was much like a day like today. It was really nice and warm and beautiful, and it very puffy little white clouds, nothing very bad. But as the day started going on, I could tell have you ever just walked outside and just you can tell something evil this way is coming, something evil this way comes. You're like, you can feel the tension in the air. There's just something not right. And throughout that day, which was February 22nd, 1998, the weather started deteriorating as it got closer to darkness. So I just made sure that all the lawn furniture was put up and everything was fine and things were secure, and I was just kind of looking out after everything. Then all of a sudden, here comes nightfall, and at this time, we had a couple of kids, and we made sure we put them to bed, and Nisi and I went to bed. And as we went to bed, we could start to hear the rain start to fall. And we could start to hear the wind start to holler and things like that. And so I'm like, okay, this looks, we're going to get some storms. Let's just be ready for it. So we end up falling asleep. Later that night, it was very late. I would say, if I can remember the exact time frame, between 11 and midnight. All of a sudden, a loud crashing noise woke me up. And to this day, I don't know what that was. But when I woke up, now, our bedroom faces south from Orlando. Okay. Cities of St. Cloud and Kissimmee is to our south. And when I woke into this loud crash, our curtains were open. I deliberately left the curtains open so I can watch the weather if I woke up during the night. What I saw through the window, I have never seen in my entire life. It made me absolutely horrified. And what I'm trying to say I saw was a lightning storm that I have never witnessed in my entire life. And I'll see if I can describe this. You ever seen the movie Poltergeist, when the little girl was looking at the TV screen and all these lights were constantly flashing and flashing like a strobe light? I would say it was like that. But instead of having a bolt of lightning like every half second, there were several bolts of lightning at the same time, happening every single half a second, I would say. It was just a constant barrage of lightning. And it was like you turn on a strobe light and you turn the knob all the way to super fast strobe. That's exactly what it was like. It was lighting up the whole bedroom like I have never seen lightning light up a bedroom in my life. And I was looking up at the sky, and I just wish there was a real proper way to describe it. It was just the most incredible light show I've ever seen. And as I'm sitting up in bed with my chin to the floor, watching this lightning in the distance, I woke up my wife, and she was looking out the window saying, "Oh my God, what is that?" And I said, I can hear myself to this day. I didn't know what to say. So I just turned my head over to her slowly and said, "Honey, people are dying right now." That's all I could get out of my mouth, because I knew what that lightning meant. I knew that tornadoes were on the ground. And with that kind of lightning, these had to be the mother of all tornadic activity. And I never thought about going and getting my kids because I didn't want to wake them up. Their rooms faced away from all south windows. So I wasn't too worried about the lightning show waking them up, and I really didn't want them to witness this. So I just start praying that this lightning misses us and goes someplace else. All of a sudden, you could see it getting closer and closer and closer, and my heart is starting to beat like it's never beaten before. I was getting ready for it. We don't have a safe. The only safe place we could have gone is to the bathroom. Maybe get the girls, go to the bathroom, throw a mattress over in the tub, and just wait for it. We lived in a very strong brick house, but a strong enough tornado, it doesn't matter where you live. It's going to take it down. And so we just kind of sat there and held on to each other in the bed as we heard this, what could only be described as a gigantic mega diesel engine literally just come roaring through. And we heard the hail. The hail was out of this world. It was deafening. It was hitting so hard and so much hail. And we could literally feel the wind blowing the house. And it only lasted for a few seconds. And then all of a sudden, during all of this, we heard this, what could be described as just this big moan sound. Like that, like a huge lion just moaning. And then it was just all over, just a hard rain. Apparently what had happened is an F4 to F5 mile-long tornado hit Kissimmee, killed a bunch of people, went back up, and literally went over our neighborhood and dropped again in a city west of us called Winter Garden, and killed a bunch of people out there that night. It was considered to be the worst tornado outbreak that Florida has ever seen. And I'll always remember that night. It's really not by the tornadoes, because we weren't hit by the tornadoes. I think they went right over us, though, however. But the lightning is something that is so ingrained into my mind, I will never forget that. It was like something out of a science fiction film. Anyway, so that is my story of the 1998 great tornado outbreak in Central Florida. At that time, this is kind of a funny outline of it. At that time, I owned a landscaping company. And a few days before all this happened, I was working on a property, and I was walking, and I fell into a huge hole in the ground that I didn't see. And the entire hole was filled with poison oak. So I literally had poison oak blisters from the top of my head to the tip of my toes during this time. I also was a volunteer for the Orange County Sheriff's Office at the time. So, of course, I got called out to handle the situation. It was all hands on deck after these tornadoes hit. So to be able to get into my uniform and perform my duties, I had to literally wrap my arms and my neck in gauze around my blisters of the poison oak. So as I'm riding around in my sheriff's office uniform with all these bandages on, people were saying, "Wow, did you get hit by the tornadoes? Look at you," And I was like, well, wanting to say, yeah, it was tough, it was rough, I said, no, it's poison oak I'm suffering from, but I had to get out here and do my duties. But that's just kind of a funny side note to all this tragedy and loss of life and horribleness that happened that night, February 22nd to February 23rd, 1998. A date that will live in my mind forever. And I think a lot of people lost their lives, and it's horrible. But a lot of people didn't lose their lives. It could have been so much worse than it was. So everyone needs to be thankful for that. And as I said, the things I'll never forget is The lightning. I wish I could just so describe the lightning. I did my best. I hope that you all could just close your eyes and picture that kind of flashing. Several lightning strikes per half second, all at the same time. It's like the whole entire horizon had a big light switch flipped on, and there's something wrong with it, so you see it just kind of, fading in and out. That was that much lightning. And the noise of that storm front when it went over our house, it was almost like nature was making a huge sigh, like, oh, what am I doing? Or, oh, this is horrible. Or, oh, whatever the case is. It was just like this huge roar. And I'll just never forget that. It was something. My wife at the time said that moan was probably the devil voice himself. A lot of people describe tornadoes as the finger of God. Well, I never, ever believed that, because I don't think God puts his finger on earth and kills a bunch of people, or any God would. I think a tornado is best described as the finger of the devil, because there's nothing good out of a tornado, nothing but death and destruction. So now, ever since then, whenever severe weather comes around here in Central Florida, I take it very seriously, and I'm always watching the skies. This is John Wild. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out for a moment with me. I would love it if you would do me the honor, because it is an honor to me, to like, share, and most of all, subscribe. Hit that like button. Shows me that you care. Shows me in some little way I may have entertained you with a story. More stories are coming. Please join my madness. I don't want to be alone here. It's John Wild. Thank you for hanging out.